Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the series premiere of Emerging Voices and Emerging Crypto.io podcast, where we will be segmenting blockchain and cryptocurrency thought leaders in emerging market. I'm your host, John Lira, founder of Emerging Crypto.io, your single go-to source for emerging market blockchain and crypto news. Today, we will be speaking with Claudia Mancini, founder of Blocknews from Sao Paulo, Brazil. If you want to read Blocknews and some of the best reporting on blockchain and crypto coming out of Brazil, you may go to blocknews.com.br. Claudia, thank you for joining and welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. I'm really happy because not only I'm here, but this is the first episode of this podcast. So great pleasure to be here, John. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Claudia, for the uninitiated, what is Blocknews?
Well, Blocknews is a news website. It's a content hub where we give, the most important news, I would say, about blockchain and crypto. When I say most important is because, well, there are thousands of things happening at the same time all around the world. And it's important also that we choose what's important, what may change your day, your investment, your ideas of entering this ecosystem or being still keeping your investments or your projects in this ecosystem. So that's what we do. And it's been a 3-year journey. I have lots of fun, although I work a lot also, but that's it. And in just 3 years, I mean, we became one of the leading news websites in Brazil.
Prior to Blocknews, you had a distinguished career as a journalist. Who are you writing for and what did you cover?
Okay, yeah. Since I was a little girl, I wanted to be a business journalist. It's funny. I always liked economics. So I started my career at a newspaper called Gazeta Mercantil. It was the largest and most important newspaper, business and financial newspaper in the country. Actually, it was considered one of the 5 most important business and financial newspapers in the world. It was a national newspaper, but we also had editions in Latin America. We had also a project in Portugal. So that's where I started my career covering, so they had this way of managing journalists that they kept you like 3-4 years in covering an industry, and then you had to move. So I had the opportunity of covering different industries, and that was good because I could have this very how can I say, cross industries overview. So I worked there. Then I went to London because I took a master's degree in London about Latin American economy. When I came in London, I worked for Dow Jones Newswires as a reporter for commodities, covering Europe, Africa, and Asia. And then back to Brazil, I went back to Gazeta, and I was also in different areas of the paper. So then we started the online service, and then we had the TV service, so I was like moving around. And then my last position was as editor-in-chief of the newspaper. Unfortunately, it went bankrupt. What's funny, because, a business newspaper like the Financial Times going bankrupt, it's a bit funny. But anyway, we managed to keep the quality of the coverage, high quality, until the end. But yeah, but that's my story. Then I moved to PR, where I was focused on financial institutions. And then I left, and that's when I started studying blockchain crypto. I decided that I want to go back to journalists and to this new crypto economy.
What an impressive background.
Yeah.
Moving on to discuss the blockchain and cryptocurrency market in Brazil. For people that aren't following Brazil, Chain Analysis ranked Latin America's largest economy 7th out of 157 countries for crypto adoption in their upcoming 2022 report. And relative to the rest of Latin America, anecdotally speaking, from what I see, Brazil has the most daily news being published about blockchain and crypto in Brazil than any other Latin American country. And judging by the general news I'm following on a daily basis for emergingcrypto.io, there is a wave of enthusiasm by everyday Brazilians to acquire cryptocurrencies, whether it be Bitcoin, Ether, US denominated stablecoins, other tokens, and enthusiasm by institutions, international corporations, and venture capitalists to either begin offering some kind of crypto blockchain related product or service, enter the Brazilian market, and provide funding to projects that demonstrate value-added services that can make money in Brazil and can be internationalized. Claudia, starting with everyday people, why are Brazilians so enthusiastic about acquiring cryptocurrencies, and how much is that influenced by Brazil's history of hyperinflation and wealth inequality?
John, what has been happening in Brazil is so impressive. When I decided that I wanted to write about crypto economy, remember my background. I was used to cover the very traditional economy. So when I told people that I was, moving completely to other side of the career, people said that I was crazy. The first things I heard from, my colleagues and journalists, it was that, but this is this is fraud, this is crime, you're crazy. I said, no, you're not understanding. This is the future. And it's going to emerge like in a few weeks, maybe. But then in 3 years, it's not mainstream yet. But yes, it's not only we have lots of news websites, but also the main media, the main outlets are covering that. The reason why I think it's happening, first of all, Brazilians like technology. We are one of the largest users of social media. If you look at number of users of Twitter and Facebook and everything, Brazil is always on the top of the ranking. This is one thing. I think Brazilians like what's new. It's a curiosity, maybe also. And there is also a relation, I think, with what you said, our background, our knowledge about inflation. So if we go back to the 80s, 90s, we had this problem of inflation. And what happened in Brazil was that the financial sector, they had to, they have to think how we're going to not lose money and make people lose less money. So we began a process of implementing technology in our financial sector. And it was funny because when I lived in England at that time, I was like, well, I think we are a bit more advanced than what I'm finding here in terms of banking services. So this has been a process. And then we had internet banking and, mobile, everything. So we are kind of used to that. Although most of the population is not used to that because, as you said, there is inequality. But those who started to buy crypto, they were used to technology, leading with websites and mobile. So that's, I think it's a great part of the story. And then you had, I think stable coins is something that I don't know if it's used as much as in Argentina, for example, or Venezuela, where they have problems with their own country, the official country, currency. But that's, I think it's a point. And I think for there is also a question of generation, the young generation. that it's very much pro-technology. For them, investing in crypto is something like, why not? And, how come you don't yet? So I think that's, generation, there's this generation, the three pillars: generation, technology, being used to that. And, now in Brazil, we have this instant payment system called Pix. So very few countries in the world, they have it. We are one of them. And the Brazilian Central Bank, in the beginning, they were thinking it was the case of using blockchain. Then they gave up. But they created Pix. So I can send you a Pix like it's real time, very easy. And the way you do it is more or less like sending a crypto to you. You have a key, you give me your key, I put your key, I put the amount of money I want to send you, I can include a message, and then I send you. So we are kind of also being prepared for the tokenized economy. So I think that's the main explanations for the scenario here.
All those points segue nicely. The pace of growth for Brazil's cryptocurrency market capitalization became as large as Brazil's equity markets in just a few years. What does this tell us? How should we interpret this? And why is this important?
Well, first of all, the equity market was not something, and it still not is something as usual to be in the portfolio of investors in Brazil like it's in the US, right? This is something, first of all, Brazilians like fixed rate investments. They're more pro fixed rate investments than these volatile investments. The reason is, well, inflation. I think we have this memory of inflation. The economy is not as stable as some other economies, like especially the developed economies. So, and also, if you go to this volatile market, you have to understand it. If you go to the equity market, you have to understand it. Okay, so maybe you lose money for 2 years, but if you read about the company you're investing in, maybe you say, okay, I lost money for 2 years, but I'm sure that, in the third year, I'll make money. Something like that. But this is not clear for people, the retail investors. This is not clear for them. And so a few years ago, the Brazilian Stock Exchange started a very, important education program to bring people to the stock market. And it has had the results. So when you see that they have about 4 to 5 million users, that's the result of this, of this program. And also because we had at the point, interest rates were a bit low. So people said, okay, let's go to the equity markets and see if we make a bit more of money. So, and then you have this crypto, and crypto, it's easier to go to crypto. You download an app, you enter in an exchange, and you do it. And you heard someone saying that Bitcoin is the one and Ethereum is the one. So you don't need, if you go to the stock market, you say, okay, where am I going to invest? What's the best company? How does it work? Crypto is much easier, I think, than the stock exchange. And I think although you still need lots of education to bring people to this market, you still need. Because as I said, it's not mainstream yet. Still, it's easier to find information and to understand what it is than the stock market. I think stock market is still, for the medium high investor.
A lot of interesting things you just said. Investor education stood out to me as a point. of note to bring in more retail investors to the equity markets. But you said Brazilians like fixed rates. They have this memory of inflation and volatility, but crypto is very volatile. Bitcoin
Yeah,
is very
yeah,
volatile. I mean, in any given day, it can go up and down 10 to 20%. Uh, but you said something interesting as well, that it's sort of easier in some respect. And although there have been an explosion of the number of coins anyone can buy, there's still these, original coins, for lack of better term, that may narrow the field of what might be more legitimate, for a lack of better term. How does an average Brazilian investor bridge that gap with this perhaps fear of volatility that keeps them out of equity markets, but a courage, so to speak, to go into crypto markets that are more volatile?
yeah. So remember, I was talking about, most of the people that invest in crypto, they are young people. So they are not afraid of the technology because they are used to it. It's different from us. When we were children, what we had in terms of technology. So we had to learn about it. While these people, they are in the 20s, 25, they when they started to learn something about life, they already did like this, to see the pictures, to see photos. So that's one thing. The other thing is that most of the people that are in crypto in Brazil, they are people that have a job and they are like middle to high income. So they put so when they put part of their money, so these people, they probably are people that are also have money in the stock exchange, right? They diversify their portfolio. So it's not the people that I was talking, the medium Brazilian, that, I prefer the fixed rate. They are more the Brazilians. I'm talking generally, obviously, but more the Brazilian that, okay, I am already in the stock exchange. I know how it works. I'm going to learn a bit about, this crypto, and I want to diversify my portfolio. And then they put some money there. Okay. So that's the bridge between
It's demographics.
Yeah, exactly. And socioeconomic also.
Right.
For someone that has, a very low salary, if they put all their money in crypto, it's because they didn't understand anything about what it is. They may put something like very small because, okay, you can buy like a fraction of Bitcoin or something, or any other currency. But usually we are talking about people that are diversifying their portfolio.
Aside from yourself, who are some of the most important blockchain and crypto advocates, educators, and companies in Brazil, and what are they doing?
I don't know if I wanted to give names. Do you want me to give names?
Whatever comes to mind.
Okay, let's talk about the segments. So because Brazil became such a leading country in this ecosystem, and because it's clear that it has lots of potential, we had many exchanges coming to Brazil, and also other digital wallets, the platforms coming here. So I think this is a very diversified segment. You have lots of options to choose, and that's good because that's competition. And I see that they compete to get the client. So in this crypto winter, what I saw was that, people giving like fixed rates. That was funny. Fixed rates. If you had your money in exchange A or B, and they use this term fixed rate, I'm going to pay you like 5% a month or whatever, giving, number, any number. But they use the term fixed rate. This is funny. And there was this competition, oh, okay, I'm going to give you an NFT. I'm going to give you this, that. So it's interesting because we have this competition. So the largest Brazilian exchange is Mercado Bitcoin, which is actually a group of companies that are linked, that work with blockchain. So crowdfunding platform, there is a school. So that's the largest one. But also we have the international ones. So we have Bitso, the Mexican one, also a unicorn like Mercado Bitcoin. And we have like Coinbase preparing its launch in Brazil. We have Binance, which is the largest one. And then we have many others. We have like Foxbit, which I think it's an exchange, but they're also moving very much to crypto as a service, because you have, like services, like we have a company here like Uber, but it's called 99, and you can buy crypto in their platform, right? And you can pay with crypto. So Foxbit is providing this service, so I think this is interesting because there is competition, and I see that very much. What I see also in Brazil is that although we are the 7th largest country, I would see more projects of Brazilian blockchains, right? And I don't see that much, but I hope we will. And one of them is called Hathor. It's Hathor. And Hathor is a blockchain. It's a public blockchain. And I have a focus also in corporate blockchain, in corporate enterprise blockchain. And I think it's nice to see that we have capabilities to do that. I think we have capabilities to do even more. But I think that's important. And we have other companies that are providing infrastructure to very important projects in Brazil. Like FinChain is providing infrastructure for a project that it's in the sandbox of the Brazilian Securities Commission. It's called B4, this project. It's a tokenization project. And I think we're doing very well in this sense also. And then we have other companies providing, like some that are focused on Hyperledger, like GoLedger. I think we have we are building an interesting ecosystem here of service providers.
Moving on to regulatory developments, for people following blockchain and crypto current events in Brazil, there has been a lot of buzz around Brazil's Bitcoin law, or in other words, a regulatory framework that was first passed in Brazil's lower house, then passed in Brazil's Senate with revisions, and the revisions are now being debated in Brazil's lower house before going to presidential approval if passed in its current form. However, recently there has been some pushback from industry groups like ABC Crypto and international exchanges, and now Brazil's Securities and Exchange Commission has begun to express some opposition to parts of the legislation that may kill the bill in its current form. For the people who haven't been following the developments closely, what are some of the main points of Brazil's Bitcoin law that make it important for the development of the blockchain and crypto market in Brazil?
Okay, so you mentioned the Bitcoin law. There was a misunderstanding in the beginning when this news came out, because and there was a story in the press because we had a congressman using the exact concept. So this is not a law to make Bitcoin our official currency.
Right.
Nothing about that. I would like to say that, because I don't know if some people around the world, that's you're a very international podcast, going to listen and think, well, maybe they're becoming like El Salvador. No, it's a law basically that wants to regulate the providers of services of cryptocurrencies. I mean, we had lots of problems here with frauds, and we still have. And the idea is to regulate that, the difference between national and international service providers. As you said, yes, it was approved. It's been discussed in the Congress for a while. And it's funny because in the beginning, some were very against that. And then they started to understand a bit more what's about, and they were more pro crypto. And we had lots of bills in the Congress, and then they became one in the middle of this process. So it was approved, as you said, lower house, then Senate, and it's back to the lower house. And it's not clear why it changed, again. So we had like a bill approved in the Senate, and then it arrived in the lower house, and we don't know officially why is that the congressman in charge of that changed the text that much. So one of the disputes is about, okay, are we going to have all the money of the clients mixed with the money of the exchanges? So with the idea of giving more liquidity, or are we going to separate that? The money of the clients is the money of the clients and of the exchange. And basically, this group that you mentioned, ABC Crypto, which is the association of some of the exchange, says, no, I want to separate that. And some international and also national players, they're saying, no, we need liquidity. So everything together, and we have other ways to guarantee to the client that they will have their money back in case there is any problem. The other point, main point that it's, it's a dispute is that the bill now says that, okay, the exchange will not, there is, this period to adapt, so 6 months, right? And it was changed also in the new bill, right? And that's also a dispute. So you have this group. It's not exactly nationals against international, because at ABC Crypto, you have also international exchange left. You have Bitso, for example, and you have Novadex, which is Chinese. And in the group that that says, no, I think we are okay, they say, no, we want more competition. The bill as it is good. But the problem is, this is an election year in Brazil. The first round, as you say, the first round of the election is now in early October, and it's a big election because it's president, Senate, federal house, as you said, the lower house, and also the houses of the states and the governors of states. So it's a huge election. So we haven't seen any move anymore. People think that's not going to happen anything till the end of the year, probably.
I'd like to come back to that in a moment. Brazil's Securities Exchange Commission is now expressing some opposition to the legislation. What are they against, and what are they recommending instead?
Well, what they said is that they don't want to start everything from the beginning, right? So it's not clear actually how they are going. And the president of the Brazilian SEC is new. He has just arrived, and so it's not clear exactly how they're going to work. What we know, and I think that's important, we have two important players in this story. The central bank, the Brazilian, the president of the Brazilian central bank, he likes cryptos, not as a official money, but he likes the idea of tokens. He likes the idea of democratizing investments, So he's pushing Brazil to this side, not to Bitcoin and Ethereum. It's not going to be prohibited, but he's working very hard to have a Brazilian digital central bank that can be linked to DeFi services, even if they are provided by banks. Okay. And then you have in the what we call CVM, the SEC CVM was also working on that. And then we have this new president, and he said in an event that he wants to work with the Brazilian central bank. I don't think that they are going to try to be against the Brazilian central bank. I think he also said that he doesn't want to avoid innovation. He doesn't want a law that prohibits these companies to operate. What he always says is that I want a law that helps innovation. I don't want to be like a sheriff, you know, like saying, no, you cannot this, you cannot that, you cannot this, you cannot that. So I think I would say that according to what he has said, that he will try to be positive about having a bill that helps innovation and competition. That's my view on that.
As you said, we're a couple of months away from Brazil's presidential election, as well as election
Actually, next month, in a month.
It's in October.
October, yeah.
I thought it was November. So we're a month away, weeks perhaps. This may distract from passing any regulatory framework, and since we're so close, maybe nothing will get passed until after the election, all things considered with the current state of the bill. What does the future look like for Brazil's Bitcoin law or regulatory framework for the cryptocurrency market in Brazil? And what do you think the outcome of Brazil's presidential election may have on the regulatory framework?
Well, this is a 1 million question. Crypto is not a main theme of in the campaign of any candidate. I don't even think that they understand exactly what we are talking about here, right? So we don't know that if we are going to have a new president, like different from the one we have now, he's trying re-election. So there may be a new president. The Congress may change also. I would say that it's necessary to have, you know, good rules in the country to promote innovation, good competition also. So I think we will have a regulation, but it's very difficult to say what's going to happen, John, because we may be in the edge of a big change in the political scenario, you know, not only a new president, but also, you know, left wing, the other one is right. You know, the Congress, it may change also. But at the end of the day, I think that there's no reason to think that we're not going to have a law, and it's going to be a law that will be like try to limit. I don't think that we'll reach this point, because we reached the point that you cannot ignore anymore the crypto segment in Brazil. And how can you prohibit people of having crypto? How can you prohibit people of operating in Brazil? It's not possible anymore. It's too big to ignore already. Although it's not mainstream. Again, it's not mainstream, but it's already too big to ignore. So I think we'll at some point we'll have, but what we'll have, very difficult to say because of this change that may happen in the next few weeks.
Brazil is developing a central bank digital currency, or CBDC, and Brazil's central bank has been one of the few central banks that are taking the lead to research the applications of distributed ledgers, tokenization, decentralized finance, or DeFi. And as you mentioned, perhaps as a result of the head of the central bank, Roberto Neto Campos's enthusiasm for blockchain, crypto, DeFi, and theoretical use cases, the central bank appears to be positive and optimistic towards all these things versus other central banks that are either taking a wait and see approach to see what other central banks will do or propose an outright ban of cryptocurrencies. Brazil has gone as far as even organizing a competition called the Digital Real Competition to invite companies to contribute solutions as part of the country's efforts to develop a CBDC. Claudia, what is the Digital Real Competition, and what are some of the goals and objectives?
Okay, let me just add an information here. For us who follow the Brazilian central bank and the financial system for so many years, I started working as a journalist in the 90s. So I have, followed this technology implementation in the Brazilian financial system. I had a bit the idea, I had a bit the impression that, maybe we were missing the pace a bit. I had a bit of this impression a few years ago. But then comes Roberto Campos Neto and says, we're going to have this, this instant payment system. And I'm talking about tokenization, blah, blah, blah. And I said, wow, we're back to the track. This I think is the very Brazilian central bank, okay, in terms of technology. Okay, so what is the, and then we have this, it's a left challenge, the Brazilian digital real challenge. The central bank has been studying blockchain, I think, at least since 2017, okay? So they understand that. And then came this movement of the CBDCs, and they created this challenge and said to financial institutions, they said, okay, we want projects to test the Brazilian digital real. Come with your projects, your ideas. And then we have 9 groups. Among them, we have banks, most, the largest Brazilian banks. We have like exchanges, crypto exchange, like Mercado Bitcoin. We have Aave, a protocol, crypto protocol. We have Consensus, we have Visa, we have Microsoft. So we have these big companies working in pools. So they have startups with them, they have the Brazilian companies with them. They have academia with them, right? Okay, so we have these 9 projects. And the idea is that they have like 45 companies actually presenting projects. They chose these 9, and each of them is going to test the Brazilian CBDC in a way. So we have like DVD, delivery versus delivery versus payment, all sorts, like offline payments, So you have all these tests. They're starting this test now. They started last week, I think. Yeah, I think it was last week, and until the end of the year. And they will publish the results. And then next year there's going to be another round. And then we'll have some pilots. And the idea is that the CBDC, at least its first features, will be ready in 2025. And one of the things that Brazilian Central Bank has already said is that, well, many things they have said, but they said, okay, we want DeFi to be possible with CBDC. That's something that I have not heard any central bank say so clearly. That's different. And they said that Brazilian banks, they can issue the Real Digital, the CBDC, based on the deposits they have, right? So, well, obviously there's some criticism. People say, oh, this is centralized, it's central banks, it's not a crypto, blah, blah, blah. No, it's not a crypto, it's not Bitcoin. There's nothing to do with that. But I always say, don't be naive. It's called central bank. Don't expect them to behave as Satoshi Nakamoto. This is central and it's a bank, okay? But I think it looks like a project that can change a lot of things. When we talk about offline payments, you have to remember that this is such a huge country, and there's some places that there's no internet. You have people living in very, very distant places. And so offline payments it would be a huge change for them, huge. It's not going to substitute the paper, the notes, not even the coin, the metal coins, but I think it's going to change the way the products that we have in the financial system. And again, we come back to the competition.
Why do you think Brazil is so motivated to develop its own CBDC? And why is it important for Brazil to have its own CBDC when, as we've talked about, the country already has a fairly well-functioning and advanced wholesale and retail payments infrastructure.
Okay, I'll give you an example. If you have an investment opportunity in a traditional bank, right? Okay, maybe you will have to have like 1,000 reais to make this investment, good investment, but you have to have 1,000 reais, something like today, like $500. No, sorry, $200. Remember that most part of the population is low income population. They don't even have access to banks. Now they have more access to banks because of the pandemic. The government, to distribute the money, they had to have this the cards. They have to start using internet or go to the bank. So that was like the beginning of digitalization for many Brazilians. Like, I don't know, I don't remember the name, maybe like 30 million people. So one of the reasons where that we can have the CBDC is that you can make fractions of investments and facilitate, the investments, and facilitate the way people can access this investment also. Services, again, they also talk about competition, more people in the market, fintechs, providing other services that they don't provide today, or they provide, but they are not as strong as the banks. Again, competition, bringing more people, democratize investment, democratize banking. There's also a question, there's cost also, right? Imagine you take paper note, you take it from Brasilia to the Amazon, and then it takes a plane, and then it takes a boat, and then it takes a road. You don't need that anymore, right? There's also this issue, not this issue, but that's the point. So I think that they have the point for this currency, the digital currency.
Well, let's talk about financial inclusion. One potential benefit of a retail CBDC is that it's touted to improve financial inclusion. You've already touched on it quite a bit. What is Brazil's history of financial inclusion, though? What does financial inclusion look like in Brazil today? How are we going to reach people to be able to invest their money to have it grow in the future the way that higher income earners in Brazil are doing already?
Mm-hmm.
And how are blockchain applications and cryptocurrencies improving financial inclusion for everyday Brazilians?
Okay. So historically speaking, we have a very bad track record of financial inclusion, right? Because, well, we had the banks, and the bank, it makes its accounts and says, okay, I want a client if the client has X money to deposit and invest. Otherwise, I will lose money, right? So not everybody had money to put in the bank, because we have people with such a low income that at the end of the month they have nothing. So they don't have what to bring to the bank, or they, I had for 2 years I worked for the Brazilian Federation of Banks, and at that period we had a report that showed that low-income people, they didn't even feel well when they went to the bank. Like, this is not for me. It's like the same feeling that going to a shopping center. This is not for me. I don't have income. I'm not this social economic group. So we have this past, and they had to put their money in the pocket and go around with the money. That's not really, that's not really nice to do, right? Okay, so they didn't have access. Even those who had a bit money to invest, they have access to a specific investment that we have in Brazil, that it's fixed rate, but it's not the best investment. They didn't have access to that. Credit cards, they didn't, because they didn't have income for that. Okay, so even if the person had a banking account to receive the salary, they were not like, they didn't have access to the service. Then we had the emergence of the fintechs. Like we have Nubank, which is internationally known. And they said, okay, you open your account with us. You don't need to put money. You don't need to do anything. You're not going to pay for that. Also because the banks, they charge you, right? Taxes. They no, you don't need anything. Just open up a digital account with us. And you want a credit card? I'll give you a credit card. Actually, I think they started with a credit card, if I'm not wrong. But anyway, so it was easy. And they did that. And other fintechs, they did that because they said there are people who need banking. They need services. So this was a big change in Brazil. Remember that in Brazil, we have more mobile phones than people. So you may live in a favela. Maybe your salary is not enough for your month, but you have a mobile. Because why? Well, because you need to talk to people. It's only a telephone that you can afford. And you do other things with your mobile. That's how people call you, to hire you for some freelance work, whatever. So we had this big change. It was good because it was competition, and it still is a competition. We had the big banks also opening their own digital banks. Some fintechs, they are now having, they are suffering the problems of being very big, but I mean, it's part of the game. And so I think that we made a big move in the last few years. The pandemic, as I said, for the very, very poor, we had this, this program of the government that pay some money during period of time, and people receive that with the card. They have to go to the bank, or they use their mobile. But there is still a lot to do. And that's when we think that crypto and CBDCs could help.
There are several projects that you mentioned with tokens that are being tested in the Central Bank and Securities Exchange Commission sandbox. What are the projects? What kind of tokens are they testing? And what are we trying to achieve in the sandbox to maybe roll out in a live environment in the near future?
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's other point that makes Brazil very interesting when we talk about cryptocurrencies and tokens. So the Brazilian SEC, the CVM, they started their second round of sandbox, and they approved like 4 projects out of, I think, 36 they received, right? Or they passed the first revision. So these 4 projects, 3 of them are about tokenization. One of them is about offering financial assets like quotes of funds and companies' debts tokenized. And what they do, they fractionize them. This one was already launched. It's called Vortex QR Tokenizador. It's already been launched. So for 12 months, they can launch projects to test it. Another project is about, they had this crowdfunding platform. Again, it's to raise money for medium and small companies. And what they do, they raise the money, they tokenize your asset. So I put money there. They tokenize, and if I want to sell it, so they are creating a secondary market for that. It doesn't exist in Brazil, right? And then for small and medium companies, we don't have anything like that. And then the other one is an exchange also for financial assets, tokenized financial assets. And this one actually is from the central bank. So the first two I said is CVM. There's a third one that is the tokenization of money raised by a crowdfunding platform that is focused on startups. So one is small and medium, the other one is startups. They raise money, tokenize that, and then they create the secondary market for that. So you see the diversification of investments that we are creating. And then these one are the three are CVM, they're in the CVM sandbox. And then you have Bolsa OTC, which is in the central bank sandbox. And it's an exchange of financial assets, again, fractionalized. So it's a complete diversification, because we remember it doesn't exist. We have only one exchange in Brazil, B3, big one, but change the scenario.
Traditional Brazilian banks are entering the crypto sector to offer their own products and services to compete with crypto native companies. Symbolically, this demonstrates a wider acceptance of cryptocurrencies that now includes historically a more conservative audience, and the evolution of traditional banking products to meet the demands of clients who are asking their bankers for exposure to cryptocurrencies. What exactly are Brazilian banks doing and offering to enter Brazil's crypto sector? And how are they contributing to the advancement and innovation in Brazil's blockchain and cryptocurrency industry?
Okay, so I think when the prices of crypto, they rose so much in 2021, there were news about that in the media, and probably in conversations, people knew, wow, Bitcoin, so Bitcoin, there's a record again and again and again and again and again. So what this financial institutions say is that the clients started to ask about that. So what's that? Should I invest? What do you have? That's the same thing that banks in the US, for example, and Europe, they say. So what we had, I think, as the first move was when companies launched the ETFs in Brazil. And some of the distributors were banks, traditional banks. And I think then they realized that, wow, there's demand for that. Wow. Look at that. That's good. So that's one thing. Well, prior, we had a Brazilian bank called BTG, and they had launched a token that was linked to the real estate, but it's not sold in Brazil because it's not allowed, because it's considered a security, the way they structure the operation. So they launched abroad. I think that was the first big move, was BTG. But then you had, the ETFs of Bitcoin, of Ethereum launched. And I think the banks, they realized, they said, wow, there is demand for that. And then we had banks talking about, okay, we have our own platform. So we have BTG that has just launched their own platform of crypto. Santander, the Spanish one, said that they're going to launch. They're about to do it, apparently. Itaú Bank, which is the largest bank in Brazil, and I think in Latin America, they said that, yeah, probably we're studying that. But also what they have is that they launched a digital assets unit. So again, they also want to sell tokenized financial assets that, according to the law, the present law and the future law. They're always very careful about that. So you have now the banks, and you have XP. Was a trader, but then it's an investment group. Now they also became a bank. They also have their own platform. it's an interesting movement because there was a dispute between crypto companies and banks. The crypto companies saying the banks do not allow us to open a current account in their institutions, and now you see the banks say, wow, okay, now we have these products. It's a complete change. It's funny also that a bank like BTG is selling something that is not regulated. It's not prohibited, but it's not regulated. And banks are very much regulated, including in Brazil. So yeah, we have this movement, and it helps to increase the market because they offer it to their own clients. You see them make advertisement in the streets. I've seen Itaú doing it. And obviously they're going to study, what kind of products can I offer, what kind of services. They know that it's, a competitive market because they're competing, for example, with the exchange and digital wallets. So I think that, they're trying to see, okay, how I bring my clients, make my client that it's putting their money in an exchange, make them do it here.
Well, we're just about at time. Last question regarding the future of Brazil's blockchain and cryptocurrency market and industry. Claudia, why should the world pay attention to Brazil and what regulators, companies, teams, and individuals are doing in its blockchain and cryptocurrency market? And what can we learn from Brazil?
The world is looking at Brazil already, but those who are still not looking, we are a country of 220 million people. We are used to a significant part of the population is used to using mobile and internet for banking services and to deal with money. And the Brazilian Central Bank is doing all it can to increase the number of people that use digital channels, and to increase financial inclusion. So, and we like technology, we like innovation. So, but the potential of Brazil is huge. I think nobody should be out of Brazil, really. They all should look at us. And I think the legislation here is not going to prohibit anything. At this point, it's difficult to imagine something like that. I think it's going to be a legislation that will allow a market. Let's just organize that and avoid what's the CVM has said is that we just want to protect investors. And someone may say that and say, I want to protect investors, so let's ban crypto. But that's not the case. Let's ban the bad players, and let the other good players be around. So it's not that, okay, there's not been any limitation. I don't know, but certainly there's going to be a market, and the regulators will allow it to grow more than traditional banks. I don't know, but there's going to be space, and there is this intention of let's make it like not a wild market, kind of organized market. Although some people are not happy with that because regulation is against the principles of the decentralized finance. But okay, if it's not everybody that understands what Satoshi Nakamoto wanted, and we're not going to avoid the central bank of working. Impossible, especially here because we have had some problems of inflation and all kinds of problems. So the central bank's like, I have to see what's going on here.
Claudia, well, thank you very much for being a guest on the show and sharing your insights and perspectives. If you want to read Blocknews and some of the best reporting on blockchain and crypto coming out of Brazil, you may go to blocknews.com.br. Well, that does it for today's episode of Emerging Voices and emergingcrypto.io podcast. I'm John Lira. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Hey guys, thank you for watching and supporting independent media. Before you go, we'd really appreciate it if you would please like, subscribe, and share the video. It really helps our reach so we can keep making great content for you. Cheers.